So whenever I say this, I mean this. The people in Vegas are the most ridiculous humans on earth, almost as much as The Simpsons and Matt Groening, who he might be running the sports book, by the way.
Something to think about.
Wasn't that in the Back to the Future when old Cuzzy gets the
Biff Tannen. Yep.
The almanac.
So for those that don't know, that are maybe new to the show, and if you just joined us for this hour, once again, you have to hate this if you're coming from wherever you're listening to this, and we apologize. We're only going to grow, though. I think that's the only thing that's happening. So you just need to get off the tracks or just hop on the train. It's just the way it's going to go. This is just how it is. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. Mike Francesa said, whenever I say things, it just becomes a feeding frenzy no matter what. That's kind of how our show is. We have no idea how it works. Every single day we're potentially not going to get on air, and then when we finally get on air, we're potentially going to get canceled or promoted. We have no idea what's going to happen, but that's our show. But I've had this big-time theory for a long time, as have much of the people. My video about it just so happens to have about 150 million views on the internet about it. I am thoroughly in the realm that Matt Groening, the Simpsons creator, is a time traveler. Mm-hmm. And that's not me this is not satire. This is not me cracking jokes here or being a wise ass. I laid out a pretty solid case for this because there's just so many things so accurately predicted in The Simpsons. And now every single day I get a new tweet with something new happening. I guess Maggie going after Trump for something was basically depicted in a Simpsons episode like 15 years ago. Every day it continues to build. But as I watch this Vegas thing happen with the sports gambling, and the more and more I realize, and now that I'm fully a part of the sports gambling world, which I wasn't as a player, because anytime you walk into a locker room, they have these big ass signs in a locker room that basically says, don't be Pete Rose. It's not worth it. Don't be Pete Rose. Don't gamble on games. It's not worth it. And it's literally like drilled into your head as a D1 athlete. They had a mafia boss named Mike Francis come talk to us about how point shaving can happen and how if you do it, it might be worth the little bit of benefit at the beginning, but for the rest of your life, you're basically going to have to look over your shoulder because the Paisans don't just put horses in people's beds. They actually kill people. So it's like you, as an athlete, you are very much taught and very much understand like, hey, sports gambling happens, but it's not for us to be a part of. I think it will be interesting now that we're diving into the world whenever you have some people with how prevalent sports gambling is going to be. It's going to be bad for refs because every single mistake they make is going to be magnified, and it seems as if they're making more and 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 more crucial mistakes, which I don't know how that's happening. But I also worry about some of these little scrub college football players or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I think there should be some worry a little bit about like potential influence with how big sports gambling is about to be.
Sure.
But when I say this, I mean this as somebody that was in the locker room. You are scared to death to even get involved in that. Will it happen? I assume there'll be an outlier that'll be terrible, as there has been since the Black Sox and then what happened in Boston College, what happens in all these things. I think it's going to happen at some point. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, although I do believe there's a lot of people that fear that it will. You're taught as an athlete not to even get involved, and you're literally scared to death about it. So I didn't know anything about gambling. And then when I retired, all my degenerate friends were like, hey, congrats, man. You're allowed to bet on games now. And I'm like, I don't know how you guys bet on games because I didn't even know how I was going to do in games. I would go into some games, and this is whenever I was having Pro Bowl seasons. I would have no clue how I was going to be. Like, you know what? Knee feels terrible today. Hip is very tight. Groin hurts somehow. My ass hurts somehow. And I'm supposed to punt with 40-mile-an-hour winds. If we're backed up and I hit a shank, that's an automatic touchdown for the other team. Are you Italians that are setting the lines accounting for that in the over-under for me being the punter hitting a shank today because my groin hurts because of a potential fornication session with my fiance last night? Like, are you accounting for that? And then now that I'm diving into it even more, I think they are. Like, I think somehow last night I called that game. It was an 11-point spread. Okay? Navy was getting 11 against Memphis. The last two times they met, it came down to 3 points, basically. It was just a very close game, a barn burner. Running the triple option, they're going to have the ball a lot. And in the first half, they absolutely dominated Memphis, but they were only up 6, right? Only up 6. Memphis was dead in the water, couldn't do anything. They had a kickoff return to the house. If not for that, it's a wide open game. And I even made mention to it in the second quarter. I said, how do these people in the Vegas think it's going to be in the desert think it's a 10.5? What a bunch of idiots, basically, is what I said. Then it actually moved up to 11 right before game time. And lo and behold, that game ended with a 12-point victory by Memphis. I have no idea how they could have predicted at halftime Memphis defense is coached by Coach Fuller from Marshall, new year at Memphis, was going to be able to talk to his defense and say, hey, we have to figure out how to play football against triple option and stop them just one time. Completely different defense in the second half. How did they know that Malcolm Perry, the offensive juggernaut for Navy, the guy that everything runs through, was going to get hurt? How did they know Nelson Smith, the fullback, which, by the way, probably the second most important position on the entire team, the fullback in the triple, how'd they know he was going to get banged up? I don't know, but I'm at the point thinking that Matt Groening is potentially over in Vegas writing these lines for people because they are just too damn good. With that being said, gambling is so much fun over here. It is so much fun, but it makes no sense to me.
Time travel is the only thing to explain it.
Yeah.
The only thing. I mean, I get NFL, like 70, 80% of the games fall within one touchdown.
Yep,
So
parity is big time in the NFL. But these college games, I mean, these kids, they have a test. Like these Navy kids, it's like their 6-week test week or whatever. Like, so every 6 weeks they have these massive tests. And these kids are taking like crypto engineering and like chemical engineering and all these incredibly impossible tests. And then they're like, oh yeah, also you got to do like PT and you got to also train to save America. And then you have a game on Thursday night. And then you're like, oh, you only got to practice 2 hours. That's why you guys run the triple option. But now you have some other wrinkles that are deep. You know, we think, 10 and a half, 11 points sounds right. Like who is thinking that? Who is thinking that at all? And then bang, 12 points. My mind was blown last night by these people in Vegas more than anything in history because going into that game, I knew the line going in. I knew that 80% of the money was on Navy. I was in my head. I was like, yep, here's the night that Vegas gets broke. This is the night that all of those chandeliers come down in those casinos. This is the night that the penthouse to the outhouse happens for all of these people in Vegas. And it turns out, it's like, nope, they're 100% right. It makes zero sense to me. And that's why I think gambling is so much fun because you're battling against time travelers. That's literally what you're doing. You're battling against time travelers.
Yeah, I mean, it's defeating the odds. If it was easy, it wouldn't be. Well, it would be fun because you'd be making a lot of money, but it wouldn't exist. Vegas wouldn't exist anymore if it was easy. But overcoming the odds are stacked against you so much, and overcoming it is what makes gambling great.
Yeah, and Stu Feiner says you're going to lose or whatever. He goes on a full run. He was a part of the movie.
Two for the money.
Yeah, 2 for the money.
2 for the money. He was one of the characters that they were based off of. He's been in the sports handicapping world for a long time. And when I was just getting into gambling, I was like, oh, this is a guy I'll talk about, a guy that was in a movie basically about sports gambling. I assume he knows. And the first thing he said to me was like, yeah, you're going to lose. Like, and then he said, but when you win, you're going to feel as if your baby maker is bigger than everybody else on earth. And he's 100% right.
100% right.
100% right.